Avengers Endgame was a seemingly insurmountable cinematic endeavor that not only had a monumental task lying before it upon release, what with following up the legendary cliffhanger ending that was Infinity War, but it also chose to take incredibly dangerous risks with some of its flagship characters. The Russos were forced to fast-track the Bruce Banner Professor Hulk arc, which was originally planned for the end of Infinity War, and elected to backtrack much of Thanos' character development in service of the present story and heroes. But perhaps one of the most interesting changes was Thor's arc throughout the film. While the previous two changes have brought with them a fair amount of controversy, Thor's arc may have not only been an interesting, yet brutally real look at mental health and how depression can affect people here in our real world, but it could actually inform a major part of his character arc coming forward in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we explore how Thor's Endgame arc might actually set him on course on taking his most powerful form that we've seen to date. Thor, throughout the course of Endgame, is burdened severely with depression and lamentation of his failure that occurred in the closing minutes of Infinity War. We watch the results of his downward spiral take full effect when we are first reintroduced to the God of Thunder in Endgame, and to say that he is not in good shape would be an understatement. Battling depression is an exhausting uphill battle that never seems to let up, and while Thor is used to battling physical opponents and always having something to punch, this is not a fight that he has ever been prepared for. But while battling depression is an immensely severe task that nobody should ever have to come up against, beating it, overcoming it, and coming out on top is one of the most powerful and most freeing victories a person can face, though it is often a very long and very tedious battle and road. This revitalization of Thor's mental state going forward, having helped defeat Thanos properly, finding a new lease on life, and discovering his reason to continue fighting alongside the Guardians could allow him to grow to his most powerful iteration to date, not just physically, but mentally as well. Anthony Russo has even gone on record to claim that at the end of Endgame, Thor is the most powerful he's been in the history of the MCU, though we believe that this quote is often misinterpreted. We personally believe that Anthony Russo is not talking specifically about his physical state, seeing as he was much more powerful in Infinity War, but talking about his mental state as well as the depth of his character and the track that he is now on. It's no secret that Thor was not in his physical prime throughout the course of Endgame, and his power levels suffered greatly because of it, as he did not hit the heights of his Ragnarok or Infinity War iterations. But this growth, and specifically this downfall, could be a key factor in defining the hero that he will grow into for the remainder of his time in the MCU. Anthony Russo in this quote likely isn't talking about his physical state, but his standing as a character as a whole, including the balance between his physicality and mentality, and how well those two core aspects of his character interact with one another and complement each other. The cohesion and the coexistence of a sound mental state, as well as an incredibly powerful physical state, has seldom been a reality for the God of Thunder, as not only was his arrogance an issue in the earlier outings of Thor, but the limitations of his power was as well. Thor has most often been corrupted by arrogance, which has been a trait seen as far back as his first solo outing, and in Infinity War, he was once again plagued by this very same brash arrogance. Only this time, the consequences were far more dire and the ramifications were far wider. In Infinity War, he reaches what is arguably the peak of his physical power, but his mental state is already suffering from the moment that the curtain rises on Infinity War, as Thanos ravages the Statesman and utterly decimates the remaining Asgardians, including killing Heimdall and Loki, and sets Thor along his quest for revenge. Thor is mourning the loss of his father, his brother, his best friend, and most of his home world throughout the duration of Infinity War, as the events of Ragnarok and Infinity War took place within moments of one another, meaning that Thor is blinded by grief and fury from the combined events of both movies. With the weight of the world on his shoulders, he is not consumed by regret in Infinity War, but vengeance. Being blinded by hatred for the Mad Titan, he embarks on a quest to stop Thanos once and for all. But with his cloudy haze of everything he's lost impairing his judgment, Thor chooses again to gloat and let his arrogance get the better of him as he relishes in Thanos' pain instead of simply ending the fight where it stood in Wakanda. I believe though that growing from this is what Anthony Russo referenced when Thor would become his most powerful iteration. If Thor is able to learn appropriately from this mistake, as well as overcome the weight of depression that he is carrying after Endgame, he could likely grow into the most sound and physical mental state that we've seen him in currently in the MCU. It is important to note that depression is not something that just goes away, and it never simply vanishes despite how hard someone tries. It is always a slow process, and small contributions are made daily by people battling with depressions to improve their mental state. People who struggle with these kinds of mental trials can often face consequences for years, even after overcoming their darkest hour. And though Thor seems to be past his lowest point, to see the remains of these haunting events continue to be a battle that Thor faces could allow him to become a much more compelling and much more human character, as even gods are allowed to feel pain. Marvel prides itself on creating human characters that are relatable and compelling, and showing one of the strongest heroes in the history of the MCU battling circumstances that are all too familiar to us mere mortals could not only allow for a more relatable hero going forward and past the events of Endgame, but a personal hero for the people going through these struggles every single day. Thor Love and Thunder set photos, which have been released recently, show Chris Hemsworth in incredible physical shape, and he himself has gone on record to state that he is in the best condition of his life for the role, meaning that we could see the physical potential of Infinity War Thor combined with the mental development and humility of post-Endgame Thor, combining Thor's strongest physical form while also giving him a solid mental state wherein he is finding his reason to live and fight on yet again, could create one of the most well-rounded characters in the MCU, using the foundation of a hero that we already come to know and love over the course of a decade. The Thor in Love and Thunder's potential to be the most powerful iteration of the character is massive and all but confirmed, combining his enhanced physical state with this improved mental state following Endgame. With Stormbreaker, the Guardians, and the remaining Asgardians by his side, Thor could potentially use his experience to truly grow into the king he was always meant to be. An understanding, appreciative king who understands the value and sanctity of human life, and has stared into the darkest parts of the universe, learning how to overcome his arrogance and to do what the right thing for his people is, putting away his pride. And though it will realistically take Thor much longer to heal from the severe mental trauma that he has endured at the hands of Thanos, Thor is nothing if not a fighter. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of Thor's potential in Love and Thunder? And what do you think of Anthony Russo's quotes of Thor being the most powerful he has ever been at the end of Endgame? Do you think that Thor's mental state has been the thing that has been holding him back through his tenure in the MCU? And do you think the God of Thunder is on track to being the most powerful he has ever been? Or is his peak still somewhere in the future? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.